So I already lied to you. I apologize. I said that we were going to talk about declensions, and then we were going to talk about endings, and then we were going to talk about what they all mean. But I've decided to make a call an audible. That's a sports term. Chad will explain it to you if you don't know what it is. And I'm going to change up this order a little bit because now we've talked about declensions. Before I give you a bunch of endings, I want you to understand kind of what those endings mean. So nouns, when you add different endings to nouns, you change the case that they're in. So typically speaking, when you're looking at a noun in a sentence, so if I were to write that sentence we had before, Taurus, Ranam, Wedet, and I were to ask you, Taurus here is the subject. The bull sees the frog. So if I were to ask you what case Taurus is, it would be nominative because it's acting as the subject, and this is the US ending that corresponds to that. If I were to ask you what case Ranam is, it would be accusative because that's the direct object subject, and this AM ending is the accusative ending. So I want you to understand kind of what the 5 main cases are first, just so they mean something when we start talking about endings. And then we'll dive into the endings, which when it comes down to it is just a matter of memorization. So there are 5 main cases. There's a couple other ones that, again, I'll send you a link to if you feel like you need it. But the 5 main endings are nominative, and the main use of the nominative is going to be the subject of a sentence. And when you look a word up in the dictionary, they give you the nominative case. So for example, up here when I gave you these noun forms, all of these are nominative case nouns. So your teacher will probably give you a nominative case, and that is almost always the subject. We'll talk a little bit more about other uses in a second, but nominative is used for the subject. I'm going to go in order of how you're going to memorize them, so not in kind of the order that probably you learned them, and then we'll go from there. So the second case is called the genitive case, and its main use is possession. And so it's going to be translated either with the English word of or apostrophe s or s apostrophe, so if it's plural. So the genitive case is used for possession. We'll talk a little bit in the next video about why else the genitive is important, but for now just know that if you see a word that has a genitive ending, it's going to be possessive. The next one is dative, and its primary use is indirect object. So it's going to be translated to or for. And I'm going to give you some examples in a second. But the indirect object, if I give a gift to you is the indirect object. That would be in the dative case. Next one is accusative. And it is used for 2 purposes. It's used for the direct object of a sentence. So I give a gift to you. Gift would be the direct object there. It's always also used as the object of some prepositions. So if I were standing near you, near is a preposition, you would be in the accusative because near is a preposition that is followed by an accusative. Prepositions either are followed by the accusative, or the 5th main case is the ablative. And it has a ton of uses, but as of this point, probably in your Latin career, you should just know that it's the object of some prepositions too. So, and when you learn prepositions, usually in the dictionary it'll say in parentheses after each one, plus accusative or plus ablative. So if I were to put together a sentence in English that has an example of all of these, it could be something along the lines of the bull, that would be in the nominative, showed the frog's leg. So frogs would be in the genitive because it's possession. Leg would be in the accusative because it is the direct object. The bull showed the leg. To the robot So this would be in the dative because it's the indirect object. And then in the pond, in is a preposition that takes the ablative most of the time, so that would be in the ablative. And then near the farm. And near is a preposition that takes the accusative, so that would be in the accusative case. So, and as I said before, whereas English word order is key for most of the stuff, you know, the closest thing we have to inflections are things like apostrophes and s's to show plural. In Latin, once you know these endings, it can be in just about whatever order you want, and it will still make grammatical sense. It may be a little convoluted as far as the word order goes. So, these are the 5 cases we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to tell you about how to decline, and then we'll look at some Latin sentences just to kind of get a hang of that, okay? That's noun cases out. Moving on to declining and endings next. And I'm not lying this time, I promise.